Okay, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all for the first Scrutiny Sub of 2024. I'm your chair, as you know, Councillor Rachel Carnack. The role of this committee is to scrutinise performance and financial reports from across all the council services and make recommendations to Cabinet where necessary. This committee also deals with the call-in of Cabinet decisions and decides whether these decisions should be referred back to the decision maker to think again. Also, we have no Cabinet members here this evening, and there is no fire alarm planned either. Should the alarm sound, please leave by the nearest available emergency exit. Two of the closest exits are through the glass door behind you to my left and through the double doors onto the riverside behind you. Please muster at Café des Amis, bearing in mind the gates are closed, so we probably have to go out through the car park. So actually none of that applies. Members of the public, I don't think there are any. Is there anyone? No? Goodness me. What's going on? Right, okay, so I don't think we need to worry about members of the public then. This meeting is being minuted, recorded and audio live streamed via the council's website. So, Andrea, apologies for absence, please.
We have apologies from Councillor Tom Mellish and Councillor Elizabeth Carr-Ellis. Oh, I've written that down wrong, haven't I? Councillor Jupe, yes.
Not yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I wrote down the wrong one. Councillor Jupe, sorry.
Okay, and any substitutes?
We have Councillor Buckman here for Councillor Mellish.
Thank you. And do we have any declarations of interest by members or officers? Okay, and we have no public speakers. So our first report this evening is the Levelling Up Fund quarterly update, and we're noting the report of Head of Digital Data and Improvement, and Caroline Marlowe, who is Head of Digital Data and Improvement, is going to make the introduction. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you, Chair. I am sure that members of the committee will have had a chance to read the report. So what I think I shall do is focus in on the areas which I think are probably the most pertinent in terms of what's moved on since we last met, and also some feedback on some particular areas of interest for the committee. So I think one was about was there likely to be any slippage to the programme, and to keep everyone abreast of that. Yes, we are now expecting there to be some relatively controlled, I suppose, slippage to the programme in terms of being spent post-March 2025 for a number of reasons, which are outlined in the report, but it's largely around consents, permissions, and scheduling of work. So some sites now need a two-stage scheduled monument consent process, which obviously takes longer because we need to do test pits in some areas before we can go for the actual works permissions. In terms of tendering, procuring the major contracts, initially we had thought it would be possible to do one large tender, but actually the scale and the differentiation of the works has meant that it's much more pragmatic, and we're likely to get better quality tenders to split that into, I think we're looking at 4 overarching packages now. So that's a pretty good balance, we think, between the number, the kind of grouping the key different procurements that we've got. So that will take a little bit longer, and obviously mitigates risks. An ecologist did identify that they had thought there may be bats roosting in the castle, which obviously could have been prohibitive. The initial bat surveys came up with no bats, so they found that was not an issue. However, not published here, we did in fact have one in February, which is the one that was alluded to in this report, which did take place, and they did find one bat last week. However, they're confident that that's not going to be an issue for us in terms of delivery of the programme. We can quite literally work around the bat. So the scaffolding and everything, that hasn't there's no critical mass of bats, we think, at this stage, which is going to be kind of overall delaying for us. We have had to look again at spreading out the work, just because there's such a volume of work in terms of the highways, which obviously Richard's team are leading on, and because the kind of necessarily kind of compressed timeline, we are looking at having to spread those out a little bit, which also might then impact on that, because the not wanting to kind of have them all kind of coinciding, plus there's certain things you can only do, you know, in the summer or the more clement months. So that's just a very kind of practical looking at easing things through. And we also want to undertake further stakeholder consultation when we get back, very specifically the bus shelter designs, because there was a bit more work that needed to be done on those, and obviously there's a lot in there in terms of the type of users, particularly accessibility. So that will go out separately later on for more kind of consideration. In the main, we expect to, well, in large part, we are going to move our match funding to be post-March 2025. It's possible that we may need to seek a formal extension from DLUC. We had a kind of light version, which has already been agreed at the end of our Q2 budget forecasting. We're probably going to need to go back to look at that being extended. However, it's absolutely worth noting that all of our kind of colleague partner councils who are doing similar bids, anyone that had asked for an extension, that there's been kind of broad consensus and agreement to that up until March 2026. So there's no reason to think that we would be different to that. And also, and anyway, we are forecasting now finishing by September 25. So not you know, it's about more of a 6-month sort of extension. Another obviously big one of those being that bus station, because that work can obviously only take place in the school summer holidays. So if it doesn't take place this year, it will have to wait until sort of next August, September. So those are the sort of top line areas that we're kind of looking at, that may cause slippage to the overall programme, but still within kind of, I think, our sort of current expectations. Lots has happened, which again is kind of summarised in there. So the highways consultation closed, the scaffolding has been agreed. We're going out to tender tomorrow for the works for the Poor Priest, which is the first actual technical piece of construction work that we'll be tendering, and will be that closes March 28th. So those works are on track to be completed by the end of this calendar year. We've got wayfinding contractors appointed now, lighting designs going out this week. Interpretation is going out imminently, so lots and lots of activity in terms of you know moving forward with the kind of more concrete plans. And we had Reba Stage 3 come back last Friday on the designs for the Story Gardens and the kind of landscape stuff. So they're kind of 97.8% locked in. There's a little bit of tweaking, but that's quite exciting for us as a kind of moment as well. So that's the kind of progress. There's been quite a lot's happened, and I think we're into that phase now where we're starting to really move forward, and then it will be sort of out of our hands and into that construction phase before we know it. And finally, the other area I think that there was some interest is around the breakdown of the professional fees. So we've got in here a table which hopefully is relatively self-explanatory, and overall the budget for that was just under 1.7 million, because our QS had recommended setting aside about 10%. And thus far on external consultancy, which is things like the landscape architects, HTA, and so and heritage consultants, QSs, highway designers, and scaffold is just over 215,000. Internal professional fees, again, I think we spoke to this last time, largely is made up of 3 full-time kind of project manager roles. So an actual project manager sits in my team, environment delivery officer, and a transport delivery officer, who actually both sit in Rich's team, who I'm pointed to, who sat next to me, and then kind of solicitors' fees and other kinds of ancillary bits and bobs there. And that's 235. And then preliminary surveys, again, all the survey works that you can see there, which we've undertaken so far, which have been very enlightening, and continue to do so. So those are probably the top line things really from me that I think the committee was interested in. So.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Does anyone have any questions or comments that they'd like to ask about? I think one of the things maybe is for next time, if we could look at some of the timelines for some of the projects, and maybe break the projects out into the 6 projects, and then we could maybe decide which projects we look at more specifically. Because I think it's really interesting at the moment, but as we get further into it, we're probably, it's going to just be too much to have everything in the luff coming to this meeting. So if you're okay with that, Caroline, maybe we could, you know, focus on whatever's coming forward early, and then some of the, obviously the costs and where we are on the timeline. But look at the castle maybe first of all, and also then look at the bus station. I don't know if other people have other ideas. Claire, sorry, Councillor Turnbull, yeah. Yeah.
I've got something else that I wanted to raise, but if you want to finish that one.
So yes, so maybe we could look at that. Anyway, sorry, yes, Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not feeling very coherent today, so I hope this makes sense. But I was looking at the sort of the climate change angle on here on the 3.4 that you've got, and obviously you know, actions to support the achievement of net zero emissions, etc., build climate resilience. But I was looking also at the sort of on the purchasing side of things. So looking at the lighting, where you're looking for obviously functional and aesthetically pleasing, and then you've got, subsequent to that, it's to do with sort of, and I think efficiently, energy efficiency, etc. But I wonder if we can put energy efficiency, sustainability, and those sorts of things higher up in when we're looking at purchasing. I think that's what I'm saying. And I wondered if, and you've got materials to be selected to be durable and repairable, can we put in also, you know, in terms of their environmental impact and their well, I suppose, yeah, resilience and their, I think you know what I'm getting at. As I say, I'm not very coherent today. And then I wondered if you have had, and obviously the climate change action plan is going to be changing, and I know it's under review. Have you had any discussions with Ellen, and has she had a look at the LUF plan, Ellen Durling, to see if she's got any comments on it and any input on that? Thanks.
To the first part of your question, yes, I must say, off the top of my head, I can't remember the weighting that we've put in there. And in fact, it may not even have been locked down yet for those different contracts. I would say it is very much top of mind and so forth, and it's fundamentally important to that kind of selection. But I'm happy to take another look, another pass at the kind of weighting of those. It's always a balancing act between cost and other factors. But yeah, I'm happy to take a pass and look at the weighting of the sustainability criteria if we don't feel that it's adequately drawn out, and say I can't recall what's on there currently.
I think it's sort of, you know, like energy efficiency obviously is going to save money, and sustainability of the items that you're purchasing, you want them to be, you know, long term and replaceable and costing us the minimum to run. So yeah.
Yeah. And on your second point, Ellen isn't on our core group, but very happy. I mean, there's an awful lot of officers involved in our, yeah, I keep looking at Richard. There's an awful lot of officers involved in our core group, and a real spread throughout the council, and we do call other officers in to take, so there's no issue at all with running that past Ellen. Probably actually a very sensible idea, so we'll do that.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Chair. My question is around looking at the street lighting columns, and could you just sort of explain a bit more about the scope of that work? Because I understand that that's ongoing, to create that strategy informed by the condition survey. Where is there a sort of a geographical kind of like parameter for that, and what street lighting columns exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about, you know, just the ones by the Westgate Square, just the ones in the Dane John, just the ones by St George's, for example?
There's kind of two answers to that. Well, yeah, two answers to that, insofar as there will be a geographical constraint to what the LUF will be funding and paying for, but that will be informed by the lighting strategy, which is in fact the first piece of work that we're going out, or the thing that I've just read it this week, someone pinged it to me, and so we're going out quite soon for that kind of strategic, the complete overview. So it's very similarly to what we're doing with the wayfinding, is being cognizant that Luff can only do so much, but one of the legacies we want to be able to achieve is a coherent overarching strategy which is future-proofed and. So that piece of work we're having commissioned, which will be much broader in scope than that which we'll be able to achieve through this, and then we will pick according to whatever the criteria tell us, or whichever will give us the most benefit, those columns, those kind of schematics that will be able to be delivered through Luff. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think just for my own clarification, then some of the lamps, the street lamps that don't automatically come under a Luff area would maybe not be repaired under Luff funding. So they might have to come. What I'm asking is, would that have to come under another funding pot at a future date, even if they're sort of in a poor condition? So I know it's not necessarily Luff. Sorry.
I'm only.
You better be right.
Yeah. I think that there is two areas. There's areas that the city council own, streetlights. So some of the parks, not Dane John. So Dane John is primarily highways, so it's KCC owned. So there's a bit of a twin approach here. We need to look at the lights that we own and we are responsible for and we maintain, and ultimately we will have to repair if they're in poor condition. Most, I'd say 80% of the lights in our district are owned by KCC, and ultimately it's for them to repair and to keep in good condition. But we're working jointly with them to come up with a strategic overview that's in a style that is in keeping with our conservation areas. There's always a bit of a trade-off because those heritage lights, first of all, the ones that we've got, the old style, they're just the control area isn't big enough for the LED cutouts that are needed. So we've got to talk to them about actually creating either a different mould or having a separate feeder pillar beside them. So lots of discussions ongoing, but in terms of responsibility, that's where the line is drawn.
Is that okay, Councillor Prentice? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Howes.
Yeah, thank you. Just to ask about, it says here, meeting with East Kent College to discuss potential learning and training opportunities afforded by the planned works. Have conversations taken place with any other education providers? Because obviously we've got universities in the city who do courses which might be relevant. We've also got sixth form schools as well. And are we as a council using it as a learning opportunity? Can we get apprentices out of it? Because we've talked in various meetings about difficulty in finding staff in certain areas. This might be an opportunity to develop our own staffing.
No, no, actually, and it's funnily enough, we were just having this conversation literally the top of this week, myself and the kind of project managers on this. We've had the conversations, very embryonic conversations with the college, and we're looking at opportunities around the poor priest, perhaps very specific things around the making of the clay tiles and those sorts of things. But it did. The really short answer is no. We haven't had those conversations yet, to be honest. But we haven't really had the opportunity to have them because it's all been a bit too amorphous in terms of what is it that might look like, because we're just locking in the programme. But we have just, we literally have been saying this week that we do need to look at that, and we need to look at some of the other education providers or whatever it is. Exactly, as you say, it's genuinely really about just getting our heads above water and kind of having that capacity to do it. But it's very much kind of on the list that now we're at a phase where there might well be some opportunities kind of springing from it that we'd want to maximise. In terms of internal staff and apprenticeships, isn't actually something that I have considered. To a degree, there's only so much that we are doing. We are project managing it, but we're not. I don't know. We can definitely take it away and have a look at it, though. I think in the same context of that learning, that ongoing learning opportunity, I think yes, it would be a shame. Unless it's completely, there's no way around it. It would be a shame to miss that. So definitely take that one away as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, Councillor Prentice.
It was a quick question and slash request, I suppose, in that we talked about sort of a bit more visibility of the timelines for some of these projects. And I suppose my request would be that if we could maybe prioritise the timelines for the projects, specifically those more high profile ones. So thinking about the castle, thinking about Westgate Towers, Westgate Square, should I say, and did I say the castle? Yeah, I said the castle, and the bus station, and things that people use most and are sort of very visible and very well used, because they are the things that will create interest from the public. And so that would just be a sort of request and a question, really.
I think absolutely. I mean, we can focus on what the committee's interested in. I think probably what would be sensible is for us to bring next time a kind of a top line Gantt chart of these are the projects, and there's 2 or 3 different rows, and these are the colours, and here are the dates, and then do a slightly deeper dive into the castle and perhaps Westgate or whichever ones are agreed. But we'll give you the kind of overarching overview with the heavy caveats as I bring every time, that it's probably will change. But yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I think that I agree. I think we need the visibility of the timelines because we've got so little time left now as well. And I think, there are the 6 projects, so prioritising those projects. And we've also got the bus station, because I think bus station is absolutely key to this whole project. And if that's slipping and harder to do, then I think we need to be aware of that, because without the bus station, then it all starts to fall apart a bit. And also Westgate Square, sorry, I was calling Westgate Plaza. We've given some of the comments yeah, I know. Yeah, yes, give it to Dan. So that would all be good. And I think then we can have the cabinet member as well, because they should be able to help us drill down into those areas. So thank you. So are we all oh, sorry, Councillor Castle.
Sorry, Chair, just a really quick one about the bus station, actually. I heard you mention about the school holidays, just a real semantics question that you might be able to email me, but if we rely solely on doing it in the school holidays and then that's pushed back, what is the alternative? What's the backup plan? Because obviously hundreds of buses a day use it. Is there like a park and ride backup? Is there a contingency cost? Because I'm just worried that school holidays, there might not be one, but I'm just worried that everyone's focusing on obviously the easy. And the other, part of the question, apologies, is on the website, obviously there's quite a lot of timelines already, and there seems to be quite a lot of what I would call looks like easy wins late in the timeline. So I know you're going to feed back next time, like CCTV. And it'd be good to know why stuff like that can't, it's easy to pick holes in what you're doing. You're obviously doing a lot of work in a lot of time, but I just think, you don't want to keep reporting to us the same stuff, But the bus station worries me, because obviously if the timeline goes back 6 months, we've only got 2 school holidays, and then is there a way it could be costed to just not do it in the school holidays and just think, okay, we're going to do it in 2 weeks and shut it all? I mean, Richard looks like he wants to hit me if I suggest that, but yeah.
We're clearly fighting over who's going to answer this one. You won't like this. The very short answer is no, there is not a backup, and it has to happen in the summer school holidays because of the time it will take to do the works. It's not our land. It's stagecoaches. They affect, ultimately they can veto it, and they don't want to. We don't want that to happen, and that's just the case regardless of who would be doing any works there. That's just their kind of logistical. And we did look at if there were any alternative ways to do it, and it just really wasn't deemed to be remotely practicable. That being said, where we are now saying it won't take place this summer, and we've effectively got another year to ensure that we are absolutely ready to go and we've got everything lined up, and that probably gives us I think that's one of the reasons that we didn't try and kind of rush it through. We weren't wholly comfortable with the design, but we could have had tweaks rather than a kind of whole-scale revision. Didn't think that would do justice to the project and to the outcomes that we're looking for. And also would have been there'd have been a lot more jeopardy around having everything ready. I've spoken about procurement timelines and permissions and alignments with highways and everything else. That probably would have been much more risky than just saying, actually, we'll just take a breath and do it next year. So no, no, there isn't a contingency, but I think we're in the best place we can be to make that ready. And your other point around kind of quick wins, largely it's around the chronology, the required chronology and the order of operation. So the kind of things like CCTV, effectively you can whack it on at the end because you've already done your digging and your trenching and your lampposts and your this and your that. So you're using the infrastructure that is yet to kind of go in. I mean, that's a bit of a layman's answer, and that's a very specific one. But yeah, it's that necessary chronology in the main. But if you've got any specific questions, do let me know.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Castle, because I think those are really, it's really important because, as I say, it's very near now. It's only 18 months away, isn't it? So I think it's really important that we follow some of these big projects and see how they're doing. So is everyone agreed on that then? So, okay, lovely. So thank you very much, Caroline, for being here this evening. So we now move on to the second part of our agenda, which is to consider verbal update from Richard Moore, Head of Transportation and Environment. And then we're going to look at how we want to monitor park and ride. We all know that park and ride is a really integral part of the local plan that comes back to Cabinet very shortly to go out to Section 18. It's a very integral part of this council's priorities. And so it's a key part for us to be scrutinising and making sure that it's operating correctly, functioning, and in revenue terms, it's washing its face at least. So, Richard, if you would like to introduce this, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So bringing you right up to speed, obviously you'll be aware Council agreed the budget for next year, and that includes the sum of money needed to reopen Story Road and run it. So we officers are busily working behind the scenes to get the terminal building ready, get the surface ready. Stagecoach are getting the buses ready, and there's some more ANPR equipment to go back in. So we're aiming for the 1st of April to restart that. We set aside a sum of money for marketing. So you'll see over the next few weeks things in the local press, actually on the local radio as well, on our website, of course, and in sort of community magazines. We're trying to put it out there to people in obviously Surrey, Herne Bay, Thanet, those directions primarily we're targeting. So that's all happening. I think it was shared with you what are basically the baseline data. So obviously going forward, we want to work out how to monitor usage. And the graph that was shared with you showed how usage had changed. We've gone back to about 2000. We've got data before that, but it's not really relevant because some new sites were opening and they sort of really changed the graph. But since 2000, there's been a sort of a steady decline, I suppose, from a peak in 2005. Westwood Cross opened 2005, but the later phase is 2007, when they really hit our car parking at Story Road. So you'll see when you look at the graph, that's from sort of 2007, there's just a gradual trend downwards. And we were, just before COVID hit, we're actively looking at how we could readdress that. The usage dropped off, you can see from the graph from 2019. But in the last 2 years, it's gradually increasing. And so people are getting more confident to use all forms of public transport, and that includes park and ride. But we're a long way behind where we were pre-COVID. We're still sort of 50%, 60% in New Dover Road of pre-COVID usage. So lots to do, but that's the baseline. In terms of data that I can provide the committee, we've got daily usage in terms of number of paid acts, income per day, So we can do that for any period you want. We also get data of the city's vibrancy in terms of footfall. So we get that data too. So we can correlate usage in our car parks and park and ride with footfall data in the city. And we usually do surveys. We haven't done one for a couple of years, so we usually do surveys every couple of years, both for existing park and ride users and car park users who don't use park and ride, just to see if we can understand reasons why. So that's the sort of data that we can provide you. I would recommend, just from a resourcing perspective, that I don't report back more than a couple of times a year. I think that would give you enough sort of information on sort of trends and how things are developing. But obviously take your lead on that, and also be interested in when you would like the first report back, bearing in mind it's going to take us 3 months or so to, listen, I don't know, day one, we might get double the amount we had before as we closed it, but I suspect it's going to take a few weeks and months just for word to get round. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments? Yes, Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, what projections do you have for park and ride usage going forward? You don't have to look too far back to see 500,000 people a year using all three sites as they were all three then. And obviously, yes, we've had a number of challenges since 2020, not least the pandemic, after which the use of all sorts of public transport has continued to rise as people have got out and about more, gone back to the office and so on. Because you could say that, well, none of them have been performing as well as they were in 2015, in which case, why do you bother with park and ride at all? Well, that's actually not our position, and no one actually seems to take that position. So do you have any sort of projections for the next few years, even if they're quite broad projections, as to usage of park and ride?
The transport strategy, when it comes out for the public consultation, hopefully early next week, sets a target for park and ride usage by 2040 of 1 million passengers. So, yeah, we looked at what we achieved previously, 600,000. And we've said we want to set an aspirational target, to almost double that. Now, we know that's going to need some demand management, so removing city centre spaces to encourage greater use, and through our pricing structures as well, making sure that differential between a low-cost park and ride and higher-cost tariffs in the city centre is greater if possible. So yeah, that's aspirational. I mean, I haven't tracked that back to what that would work in a percentage each year. I can work it out, and it might be 5-8% a year ish. So if it's on a straight line increase, that's what we'll be looking at.
Councillor Howes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I've got a couple of things I'd like to ask. Is it possible to monitor? Firstly, one of the things is to green the city, the air quality. Is there any way we can actually measure the impact of people using park and ride against what currently happens with the cars coming in and out? I don't know where the monitors are and how accurate the readings are, but I think that would be really useful to see if it's working in that sense. I also would like to know, what is a break-even point for each car park? And are they making a break-even point, or is there a subsidy? And as you said, the aspiration is to go to 1 million by 2040 by lowering the number of users within the city. So it'd be interesting to actually have a correlation, not just of footfall, but also to actually see if there is a correlation between people using it and decline in town or city centre parking as well, if that's possible. Thank you.
Yep. So in the data that I can give you could show city centre parking as well. So we can certainly add that. And I can show break-even costs as well. So I haven't got that to hand tonight. But what I can tell you is that before COVID hit, when we increased prices to £4 a day, based on that usage at that time, it was looking at breaking even. So we're not that far away if we can get back to where we were. But having said that, that's a big a mountain to climb. Air quality is going to be quite difficult, I think, because, I mean, park and ride usage is, I mean, let's say we get 1,000 vehicles a day in park and ride. I can tell you what the carbon benefit of those vehicles not travelling into the city centre is, and that's probably the best way I can do it, rather than looking at air quality sensors.
That's a fair way of doing it. If that's the data you've got. If you haven't got, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Buckman.
Yeah, so it was just you were saying about monitoring the cars and things, but will you be monitoring like the bus service as well? Because the main thing that puts people off using the buses is if they're late and if they're cancelled. So if you could, is it possible to monitor the situation there? You know, delays and obviously not delays on the road, but delays from leaving the bus station as such, and if services are cancelled.
Are you talking specifically about park and ride buses or service buses?
Well, in theory, it would be all buses, but as we're talking park and ride,
part of our contract with Stagecoach is that there's KPIs, performance indicators, that they have to report back to us quarterly on, and how reliable they are, and they're meeting all their targets in terms of the amount of times they go in and out of the city centre and any delays they get. So we can give you those KPI data. There is wider data on service buses as well. So if that's relevant, I could feed that back in as well.
Okay, yeah, so it's just follow up with that one about, because you were talking about other bus services as well. Will there be sort of a live tracking service on the park and ride?
There is. We don't have access to it. It's because they're Stagecoach buses, but they've got trackers on, so they know where they are at all times.
I mean, for like the public when you're using it, so you know when they're coming, so you can get there on time.
Yeah, there's something we've spoken about. I think where we've wanted to go is they're not timetabled. Buses aren't timetabled, and we want them to be fast and frequent. So actually, we want them to come every 10 to 12 minutes. So we haven't up to now felt the need to actually put it out there. So you turn up and within 5 minutes is something comes along. Where we have problems was when there's big incident in the city centre, and then nothing turns up for half an hour. And what we do then is we've got staff who go around and actually put notices up and tell people.
Thank you, Councillor Buckman. Yeah, I think those are really important points, particularly with the bus first strategy, that we really need to look at how the buses are functioning. And I was going to say, Richard, as well, as part of that, I think it would be interesting to know early morning and also evening journeys, so on those stops, because if we're looking at widening out park and ride, but it's very limited service at the moment, isn't it? So if that's something that the council is looking at doing in the next few years, trying to expand and improve that service, then it would be useful to know whether there is evening and early morning usage.
Yeah, we can give you arrival time data throughout the day, so arrival and departure.
Thank you. So I think it's Councillor Turnbull and then Councillor Brody.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've just got a few points, Richard. So traffic going through Surrey, there'll be the idea if it's successful, then people will potentially be driving through Surrey in order to get to the park and ride. Will you be monitoring sort of traffic levels going into Surrey and along that road? Will you be monitoring traffic levels sort of west of the park and ride? Presumably you're hoping that those are going to decrease, and then hopefully bus journey times will be increasing because there'll be less traffic. I mean, they'll be decreasing as well because there'll be less traffic clogging up the road there. Is that going to be monitored? I'm concerned that people will stop using buses, and because it's a lot cheaper for them to drive to the park and ride and park there. Will you be monitoring, or will Stagecoach be monitoring bus user numbers on the through buses? Presumably they will, because they'll want to know what passenger numbers are like. Air quality as well in Surrey, there are monitors there. Can they be, I don't know how actively they are monitored now, but can we sort of keep a check that levels at least don't rise as a, as a result of, increased traffic on there. It's already a place where there are accidents and difficulties with traffic congestion. So just a concern that there's going to be a knock-on effect of increased congestion there. Is there anything else? Yeah, I think that was it. Thanks.
I think we've got to put it in perspective a little bit. Before we closed it, there was 100 vehicles a day. Listen, if I can get it up
You want it to be a success.
to 200, 300 vehicles a day, it will be good. That's going to make absolutely no difference to the 12,000 vehicles that travel along the A28 past Stowe. So in terms of traffic monitoring, it's just not worth doing. And similarly, air quality monitoring, it's a bit of a drop in the ocean. Having said that, it is absolutely important because it feels the need. It's those thousand of vehicles that don't drive into the city centre will have a massive sort of carbon benefit for us. But I think we just got to just be mindful that we are talking low numbers to start with. The cost of £4 per day, £3.20 for residents is really good value. It's still, whilst the cap is in place for bus services, £2 per journey, it's still better for people to catch a bus if they can from source, from their home, and that's how we want it to be. We don't want park and ride to be cheaper than catching a bus. We'd rather people use the bus for the whole of their journey. Park and ride needs to be much, much cheaper than driving in and parking in the city centre, and it's got to be the attractive alternative for people who haven't got access to the bus.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you can get several of you in a car rather than, a family of 4 on a bus is going to cost more than a family of 4 in a car.
Yeah, and the reason we do that was to encourage car sharing, of course. And you're right, for a large family, it's cheaper to use park and ride than each individual to catch a bus. Listen, Stagecoach will tell us. If we start abstracting from their services, they'll tell us. But yeah, it's never been a problem so far. And even then, the sort of, I call it the heyday of when we're getting 600,000 acts per day, the bus usage was still going up.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just getting that sort of sweet spot of it being actually making enough of a difference. If it makes too much of a difference, then it's going to have other impacts. If it doesn't make enough difference, then it's not going to be value for money. And there's quite a few things in there, aren't there? Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Brady.
Thank you, Chair. Richard, you gave an overview from 2005 and 2007 and the reason why it started to decline. But there was a small decline in 2018 and 2019. I know COVID hit in December, which is peak shopping. But I'm just wondering, what happened in 2018? Because there was a decline across the board. Was there a reduction in advertising spend? And are we going to be monitoring for every pound we spend on advertising? Is there going to be an increase value in usage?
The peaks and troughs, you can see the trend, but the peaks and trough are usually where we put the price up. So, and we've always put it, we never put up in 10p an hour. We've always put up in 50p. So, yeah, we've gone from starting at probably £2 a day. I suspect that was when we went from £3.50 to £4, and that does have some initial drop off. Previously, that drop off has only lasted a year, and then it gradually gone back up again. This time, because COVID hit, it just carried on plummeting.
Councillor, Councillor Brady.
The advertising spend question, the moving forward, is there going to be visibility on what we're...
I've always taken the criticism that we've been very poor at marketing it. 10 years ago, we used to really target university open days and things like that. I think we sat on our laurels a bit, because the decline was gradual, it never sort of got to these sort of meetings where people said, come on, officers, do something about it. We've tried to use our website, and probably not as successfully as I'd liked. But it's been mentioned for probably the last 2 or 3 years that actually, we need to really strongly get word out that park and ride is such good value for money. as well as being a more environmentally friendly option than driving into the city centre. Listen, we're going to spend, I think we've got 30,000 this year on the reopening. It'd be interesting to see the benefits that realises.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Watkins and then Councillor.
Thank you. Richard, thank you for preparing the annual data going back 20 odd years, which is helpful to see. I mean, I support the principle of park and ride. If you see me speak on the topic in the last year, you'll remember that I'm deeply concerned about the Sturry site. I do unfortunately feel it's throwing good money after bad, and I worry about that £300,000 of subsidy every year that we've got budgeted to support it if the numbers are as poor as 80 to 100 cars per day using it. Looking at the data, you can see in the case of Sturry that it's dropped by over half pre-pandemic, so between its peak and then 29. So it's really not very competitive. That's what that tells you. As a transport share, it's not very competitive at all. Decisions been made, and actually I wish it well. And as you say, it's really important to monitor it now and see whether the marketing levers you pull will make a difference. We're not fundamentally changing the service itself. There's no priority bus lane. There's not big difference in the buses. There'll be the one servicing the other park and ride sites. So the marketing's the tool you've got, and hopefully that will work. In terms of the metrics, I think you said obviously monitoring the number of cars, but also the number of passengers. Because some cars have got one person, some have got four. CO2, I think you said, and which basically just comes out of that calculation, doesn't it? Once you know the number of cars, if you just assume an average sort of car fleet. On the target, maybe the thing that concerned me a bit was you've got a target to increase it sort of between 5 and 8% per year. That seems very low to me because the main benefit of park and ride is environmental and transport reasons. When we had the paper come before one of our council meetings where we debated this, people might remember we talked a lot about the carbon emissions, but because it is sort of an environmental project, if you like, and at the current number of people using it, we saw that we're about half before it closed, so in 2022, at that sort of 80 to 100 vehicles a day, we're at about half the level it needs to be before we're carbon break even. So at the moment, the cars that it replaces actually only produce half as much carbon as the bus is running all the time. When I say at the moment, I mean in 2022, when it was last open at that usage level. Put it another way, we're doubling the amount of carbon that those people use it by getting them onto park and ride. So, that's not good at all. Obviously, we all want the best for it. We want it to get more passengers. And then, once it's doubled, then it will at least carbon break even. And then incrementally from there, it will take carbon out of the atmosphere, which is a positive. And to Joe's point, that will also clean up the air. But that's talking about doubling, right? Roughly doubling, whereas you're talking about 5 to 8% a year. So you're talking sort of 10 to 20 years to get to that point, which means if we only achieve that target, we're going to be putting more carbon into our atmosphere because we're running Sturry Park and Ride for 10 to 20 years. Do people here think we should be a bit more ambitious than 5 to 8% for Sturry?
I quoted those figures at the top of my head.
Okay.
If someone wants to do the maths for me, we are looking at, at the moment, we're 220,000, and I want to go up to 1 million over, 18 years. Someone can do the maths. So and that's 800,000 in 18 years is the increase we're looking at to get to that 1 million target. Now, it's not, and that's so you can do it as a straight line. It's not going to be a straight line. We want to get back the people we lost during the COVID. So to get from, in Sturry's case, 0 to 200,000, I'd want to get that back in a couple of years, and then get from 200,000 building that up, that's going to obviously be much, much longer. And it will be things, it will be step change. It will be Stowe bus lane opens up, and that might be, you know, that you might get, you know, 15% that year. Yeah, who knows? Those are the sort of things that are needed to make that sort of step change. Closing city centre car parks will be another step change. But yeah, forget the 5 and 8%. I hadn't done the maths, just top of my head.
And I won't hold you to it because it was off the top of your head. So, but it would be good to confirm what the target is. And you're saying that, you know, if we're looking at, let's say it's 100 cars today, then with 2 for Surrey, then it would be in 2 years 200. So, you know, in a year it might be 150. That, I mean, are they? I mean, because it'd be good to have those numbers written down. That is, you know, like any organisation should always have its targets kind of documented.
Yeah, it would, I mean, the decision was not made on a business case. We absolutely said at the time, this is a the council made a decision on a strategic approach, and we said at the time, we're not tying to a business case. So, yes, in my mind, I can work out some figures that I'd like to achieve, but we haven't set that down. The decision wasn't made, and therefore, I'd like to think the decision might be pulled on the basis of not making. It's a strategy. It's a vision. We need to make it work.
Yeah, but and I'm not saying that it should be pulled on, you know, if it missed the target. But I mean, there has to be a number that's the target. I mean, if nothing else, that achievement the number of cars we achieve will hit the budget. And that is a documented number, isn't it? What our budget is for the next couple of years. So there must be written down, someone in the cabinet must have a number for what the usage is, because someone's saying financially we're going to subsidise it by £300,000 or 200,000 or 100,000. Do you see where I'm coming from? You can only do that if you say how many passengers it's going to carry.
Let Peter.
I hoped you weren't going to say explain it, which you didn't, so I'm quite happy with that. So the budget has gone through, set out with the OSPO and all of the different parking stuff, set out how across the whole parking estate, the parking estate would wash its face, and that's broadly how the money side is being accounted for. So the changes in the banding and the increase in some car parks and decrease in others and residence rate, that whole parcel together has set the budget framework for how Surrey Road, essentially, Surrey Park and Ride can be reopened, along with other measures to make some car parks cheaper, some car parks more expensive, and that side of things. So we can't look at Surrey Park and Ride in isolation in the budget sense. So I think the budget side is over there. The other side of it, and it's slightly annoying, I think, the timings, it's just where we are, but some of the stuff that comes out on Friday with the local plan draft papers, and I know in private briefings we've had, we'll set out some of the stuff around the longer term bus strategy and the transport strategy, which will cover off more of some of those, maybe not annually what you're going to expect to see in the change in behaviour and the increase in bus usage and particularly park and ride, but it will set the strategy for what it looks like, and then we'll set the measures that Richard will need to work on well, how do you measure the success? And it's a bit like, I suppose, what we've got with air quality and the climate change action plans. There'll be a broad strategy, and then there'll be what do those smaller incremental changes look like? And in a way, which is what Rachel sort of brought this forward to, is how does this committee provide scrutiny over that? And you can only provide scrutiny if there's something measurable, and I think that's what we're trying to get to tonight on some of that. But you're going to have to look at it in the wider bus strategy side of things and the transport strategy and the local plan ambitions as well, which are also draft, which makes it really, really tricky for a committee to be able to hold account on something that's draft going through consultation, which again probably links to the timing side of things, that you are going to want to leave it a little bit of time. And I think you're probably stuck in this pace of, to start with, you're going to be looking at Park and Ride, and is the opening of it delivering anything? You know, what is that step change? Is it heading in the right direction? And then as we get into the adoption of the transport strategy, then it's how do you hold the council and, you know, its policies to account on how you then start to see probably a faster step change once the money and the resources come in to be able to deliver bus lanes, you know, the Story Relief Road, all sorts of things start to come in, which will be bigger parcels of that. So I think you probably got a couple of step changes yourselves as a committee in sort of seeing that evolution of it. But the budget side is the money coming in for car parks and meeting its budget. That's a relatively easy one. You're going to see that 6 monthly anyway as a committee when Nikki brings those reports through. Then the opening of Story Park and Ride, is it moving in the right direction, and all the stuff that you've spoken about tonight. And then the third part is probably the bus strategy. Once that gets adopted, how does Park and Ride fit into that wider bus strategy, and what's the information we're seeing to see that move towards people going towards active travel, particularly bus, rail, other modes of public transport to enter the city and the rest of the district, which is stuff that you'll probably start to move on to.
Rachel, just one thing that's just occurred to me. Obviously, we did put a figure in for the reopening, and that was based on income from 90 vehicles a day. So to meet that, that's all we've got to achieve. That's not our aspiration, but obviously we put a worst case, hopefully worst case scenario in for the budget.
But yes, and that will be the role of this report coming to Scrutiny Sub, and we can measure that against 2022 and 2021, whatever, and from that we can gauge how successful or otherwise it is. Right, I know I have a couple of councillors who want to speak, but Councillor Cossell's been waiting quite some time, so.
Thank you, Chair. I sort of agree with Councillor Watkins. He's very keen. I think he's got the wrong job at KCC because environment's his thing, isn't it? But yeah, obviously the one thing I think that's difficult with the emissions, just to clarify something, is obviously there's that third-hand emissions. But the things I wanted to ask, if that's okay, you probably might have these to hand, is on the other car parks, we have length of stay. And I'd just be interested to know how long someone stays in the park and ride. So do they arrive at 8 o'clock and then go very quickly, or they stay all day? And also, I don't know if this is feasible with the ANPR machines, but I noticed a lot of press this week about a lot of businesses online businesses are noticing where people travel from or purchase from. Is there a way to ask people voluntarily to share the number of passengers in their car on the machine as a software update, and also potentially the postcode they live in? Because obviously that would be the most fundamental. If every single person is coming from one place, you know, or a very small area, then that would solve quite a lot of the long-term strategic problems. I know it'd be voluntary and it's obviously hard, but I didn't know if that's something in the medium term, just to give you a little project, because I know there's a lot of people in my ward who don't travel. They travel, you know, I'm one, I'll admit it, by car. The bus is £16 for my family to travel to town, return. So I'm never going to go by bus. I can park in town all day. So that sort of thing, it'd be good to know who's going where, if that's possible. But thank you.
So we definitely know, we can definitely get passengers because Stagecoach have to click them on and off. So we know the number of passengers. Postcode data we get through our surveys. So we usually do it every couple of years. We do a survey and we ask them where they've come from. So we've got some good data. So I've completely forgotten. What's the first part of your question? Or what statement? Oh, length of stay. So city centre car parks on average, believe it or not, is around about 1 to 2 hours. It's really small. Park and ride is 3 to 4 hours. So it's not. Some people go all day, but some people use it for much shorter. So double the length of time.
And I guess we're going to be able to tell as well who's using the resident discount and who's not. So that will give us a good idea of where people are coming from. Thank you, Councillor Castle. So Councillor Prentice next, and then Councillor Brady. And
Thank you, Chair. And when you were talking about the 1 million a year by 2040, I just want to check, does that include the proposed additional park and ride for Merton Park and the relocation of the New Dover Road park and ride? Because obviously that adds to the number of facilities we offer. And I'm assuming it doesn't have anything to do with the park and bus facility that we proposed in Whitstable, because that's a different proposition altogether, isn't it? So I just want clarification on that, really.
It doesn't include Whitstable, but it does include a site that will serve that A2 northwestern approach.
thank you. And Councillor Brady.
Thank you, Chair. I think if we're looking for clarity, I think it's been mentioned a couple of times that to reopen Story Park and Ride, it's going to cost 300,000. That's incorrect, isn't it? I think it's going to cost less than 300,000. I think, in the budget. So just if we're looking for clarity, I think it's really important that we have the figures correct.
I think it's two. I think it's 250. It's something
So
like
just
that.
so it's less than 300,000. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. But I suppose if you add the marketing budget and whatever, but yes, it's in the budget papers anyway, if anyone wants to check. Councillor Buckman.
Yeah, I know there's been quite a lot of talk about like the emissions and car, but there's also like the rubber particulates from obviously that enter in the waterways through the drains into your lungs and stuff. So that's from my point of view, that's quite a benefit as well. And also, you know, you talk about reasons for not doing things, you know, like the bus lanes and things like that, but that is just sort of like an excuse for not it's like a climate delay excuse. And, you know, going for sort of policy perfection it's never going to happen, is it? It's, you know, as you say, you could call it small steps or little steps. And our whole corporate plan thing is based on sustainable development goals. And obviously air quality is one of those. So I just think that's quite a good idea. And then actually October was my date I was thinking of for your report from your, what's it, a while back. So 6 months, and then it also gets rid of the Christmas, you know, that will make the Christmas figures like alter it.
Thank you, Councillor Buckman. Yeah, we can come to that in a minute. I think we were thinking maybe March, September, but April, October is okay. I think one of the things is so that it's a different month probably to the budget outturns coming, because otherwise it's a big night. It's a big night of data to go through. So it would be good to have it slightly out, you know, be a different meeting to that meeting, probably, so that we can absorb it. Otherwise that can be a 3-hour stint again. Councillor Howe.
Yeah, thank you. Just following on from that, I agree with you, because I think what we also need to consider is where it fits into the cycle of Kanenko reports, housing reports and everything like that, KPIs, because otherwise every 3 months we're going to have a really long meeting and then the next meeting might have nothing at all. So I just think we need to make sure everything's shared out evenly. But in terms of the survey, I think what we need to ensure is that it's not just one survey every couple of years. I think when we first start, because what we understand is that this is a key pledge, key policy, and we've had people when we spoke about this coming in from UK CCUC talking about their need for it. So it'd be interesting to see how many are students, how many people are using it if it's extended for the Marlow and so forth. So if we could, even for the first 3 years, have a survey annually, I think that would be really useful. And if we can't do it, can we not utilise the education providers to actually carry out surveys on our behalf? That's a possibility. Thank you.
But, Richard, when was the last survey? We must be due one anyway, aren't we?
Yeah, it was at least 2 years ago, probably.
At least, I would say at least it was possibly.
It's
even
probably
a bit
before we
long
had the
before
loss of the
COVID,
contract. Yeah, we did it
Yeah.
before the contract, and that's been in place coming up 3 years now.
Yeah, so it's probably 2019, 2020, isn't it? So it's probably due one. Councillor Castle, yeah.
Sorry, Chair, not to give you more work. I just want, you know, we're going to see you, obviously, which is lovely. I'm not actually too worried about seeing you personally. I think seeing the data is great. When we get the data, which, you know, collective decision, obviously twice a year, would it be possible to break it down in the first year by month or even by week? Obviously, you will see that probably because you get live data more regularly, just because obviously it's in such a crucial period. You know, if we notice every single Friday no one's using it, then potentially, you know, we can sort of, I just think it'd be quite nice just to see it. If it's accessible and not going to take hours and hours to collate, obviously. Thank you.
And yes, Councillor Howe.
Sorry again. You mentioned that the council has KPIs and meetings with Stagecoach. I think it would be really useful for us to see those as well, to see how Stagecoach are actually performing on their targets, if that's okay. And if I don't know if would think it useful to actually get Stagecoach in at some stage to talk about it. Yeah, just so Lee doesn't have to see you every time, Richard.
I think when we have the first report, the cabinet member will be able to come and report on it anyway, because it's their strategy and they will have had enough time in their role, I think, by then as well, to be able to talk to us, and we can have Richard can then go into a backup role rather than centre stage, which you might prefer. But I think that's a good idea. I mean, we can call witnesses, so I think Stagecoach would be good to have at some point, and there may be others. So what we need to, does anyone else have any other things they want to add to this? I think fortunately Andrea's been writing these all down, so we've got a record of them. But we need to agree dates. So if everyone's agreed with that, I think yes. If we start September, October, and then March, April, however you have a look at that and see whether that fits. If everyone, because I think that works, because then we'd get to see the summer holiday period, and then we'd get to see the Christmas period, and so we can monitor it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, so based on that, we'll take it away, because I can't remember where we are on agreeing a new cycle, and for May it's probably going through process, and you'll get it at council and stuff, and there are some slight tweaks to the dates or the timings for Scrutiny Sub to take account of some of the issues you've raised. But we'll take it away and say the opposite to whenever the budget and the regular performance reports come through. So you have 4 meetings a year. This will come twice, and it'd be on the opposite ones to when you would get a performance and a budget report, and then we can do the heavy lifting on working out when those are for you.
That would be good. And then obviously we've got other reports coming as well, so that would be good. So I think everybody has had some really good input here, and we've got daily usage, income per day, obviously the congestion and air quality questions, surveys. I think, yes, Richard, survey would be good, and I agree with Councillor Howes. If we can use students, maybe we have traffic engineer students locally, I don't know, but we may have some relevant students studying relevant subjects that they might be interested in taking part of it, particularly as there's this brand new Bus First strategy. It might be an interesting thing for them to get involved in as well. So if we could do work on that. Then the length of stay at Park and Ride, how many people in the car, where they're from. And then I think as well, for every pound we're spending in marketing, what impact is that having? And the growth in parking acts, as Councillor Watkins said, what sort of growth are we looking at? And let's not forget, we are looking at all three we're looking at Park and Ride holistically. We're not just looking at one Park and Ride. We are looking at all Park and Ride. And as Councillor Prentice said, in the next few years, we will be looking at changes to these Park and Rides and new Park and Rides. And then if we get Whitstable Park and Bus, we're going to have to look at that as well, somehow or other. So yeah, there are various things. So I think that's just about everything, but Andrea will have it in the minutes, and I'm sure you'll be able to look. And then when we have the first report back, if there's something we don't want or we do want, then we can change that anyway. So is everyone okay with that? Anything missing that you want to add? No? Okay, that's lovely. Right, fine with that. Thank you. So we have no other urgent business to be dealt with in public. We don't have any press in public, so we don't need to exclude them. And we don't have any other urgent business which falls under the exempt provisions of the Local Government Act 1972 or the Freedom of Information Act 2000 on both. What date's our next meeting, Andrew? I don't have it. Do we know?
I don't think it's been agreed yet, has it? No.
Oh, right, okay.
So watch the space.
Okay, so
I think it will be June, but it has to, the final.
Okay. All right, okay. So we'll be back sometime in June. Ish. Okay. But we'll be back.
You will be back.
We will be back. So thank you everyone this evening. Hopefully we've got some good data to come out of that as we go forward. Thank you.